Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Danielle Fisher, and I'm the event manager here at Eco Canada. And today's session is called From Passion to Action, Explore Green Jobs with award-winning graduate Clarissa Huffman. Before we start, I would like to take a moment to recognize the traditional Indigenous lands where Eco Canada's office is based in Calgary. At Eco Canada, we're committed to working towards respectful acknowledgement, collaboration, and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples across Canada. This starts with acknowledging our honor and privilege to live and work within the Treaty 7 territory. Today, we are presenting from the city of Calgary, home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We would also like to take this time to acknowledge the traditional territories and oral practices of the Niitsitapi, home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina and Goodstoney, which includes Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. We would also like to recognize that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the territory of the Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the Treaties of Peace and Friendship. We will also respectfully acknowledge the unceded traditional territory of the Songhees and Esquimalt peoples, where Royal Roads is located, as the traditional keepers of their land. We want to say thank you for allowing us to live, work, and play on your land. Before we start, there are a few housekeeping guidelines for today's session to ensure that everyone can enjoy and participate in our session effectively. All participants are muted, so please check your audio settings to ensure that you can hear us properly. If you're experiencing any technical issues, please use the question box and select Eco Canada, the organizer, and I will do all that I can to resolve the issue. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available on demand to you within the next 24 hours. Everyone who registered for the webinar will receive an email with a link to the video. Any questions that you have about the presentation or today's topic can be submitted through the chat box or question box. We will have dedicated time after the presentation to answer any questions from the audience. We will have a Zoom link that is put in the chat box right now, so you can join with that Zoom link afterwards. And finally, we really want to know what you think about our webinars and how we can keep improving. You'll be sent a short survey after the webinar ends. Please let us know what you think, or if you have any comments or suggestions about the webinar. Eco Canada's vision is to build the world's leading environmental workforce. Eco Canada seeks to help environmental workers succeed at each step of their career journey. To do this, Eco Canada has developed programs tailored to individuals at different stages of their career. For those looking to enter the environmental workforce, Eco Canada provides training through the BEAR program and accreditation for environmental programs at post-secondary institutions. Eco Canada also provides opportunities for new workers to break into the environmental sector through wage funding for co-op students and RRU post-secondary graduates. For those already employed as environmental workers, Eco Canada provides the environmental professional and environmental professional in training certifications and EPT students. Lastly, Eco Canada provides opportunities for those with vast experience as environmental workers to provide guidance and direction to Eco Canada's products and programs through advisory committees and emeritus memberships. First, I would like to introduce Nancy Prevost-Maurice, the WIL framework developer and former student recruiter at Royal Roads University. Next, we have award-winning graduate Clarissa Huffman, who works in climate plan and strategic action for the government of Nova Scotia. And lastly, we have our very own Director of Research here at Eco Canada, Geni Peters. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and I'm very pleased to be here with all of you this morning. It's 9 a.m. in Victoria, BC, and I'll just take a quick few moments here just to introduce you to Royal Roads. I know we have students in the room, we have prospects, we have the community. And I know Clarissa will be able to share her experience coming on campus a few times. But yeah, here you have the Hatley Castle, which is the most iconic building we have. And if we can go to the next slide. Royal Roads has been around since 1995. So we're doing online, blended, and on-campus learning for more than 25 years. We are a university for working professional. And what we do is in most programs is very aligned with what Danielle described in EcoCanada kind of vision and mission. So we really want to support people with the courage to transform their world. So again, we have a picture of Hatley Castle here. You can see behind it the Esquimalt Lagoon. So as you can imagine, I don't know if some of you have been on campus, but it's a lovely place to just walk around and study, come with family and friends. I love when I see students having picnic and discussing like real world challenges. On campus, we have 565 acres of land, so that's a lot to play. A feature here of the trail, people like to bike and walk or run on campus. The water is a bird sanctuary right in front, so that's a beautiful place where many of our students in environmental studies will do some research, for example, or work with their instructors around that area on campus. And as I mentioned at the bottom right, you can see online learning. So it's not something that Railroad had to do and pivot to online learning. That's something we do since day one. So our instructors are very well qualified to do what we call the blended model. So you come on campus a few weeks per year, and then you study from home. So being a student myself, I know what it is to work full-time and study full-time, but really at Railroads, we're trying to level up the skills you already have and bring you in most of the time a cohort models, which means that you will learn from your peers, from your instructors, and you continue towards the couple of years you do together in a bachelor, in a grad certificate, or in a master, even a doctoral programs. Thank you. And something I really like to mention is that we are a changemaker campus. So you can read the description here. You can even Google it. Only a few institutions in Canada and North America has that accreditation about innovation, leadership, and really kind of next level education, I like to call it. So we're very proud of it. And I hope that today you can learn more about how we do things differently at Railroads. And we will make sure to save some time at the end for questions and to chat with our panelists in a Zoom link. Thank you, Danielle. And here, the School of Environment and Sustainability, Clarissa will let us know about the programs she did. But just to give you an overview of all the programs we have, that's a lot. And we have way more because we have many schools. But in the Environment and Sustainability, you can quickly see here, maybe you want to take a print screen of your screen or a picture. Those are all the programs that we offer. And it's good to know, and those are most of our undergrad and graduate programs. And it's good to know that some of them will be about a year, some of them will be 2-3 years. Some people can take up to 7 years to complete, for example, the Bachelor in Environmental Practice. So there's a lot of option for you depending where you are in your career. And because we're hosting with EcoCanada today, we don't have our enrollment services with us, but I really encourage you, if you're looking to do something different in your career, please email learn.more@railroads.ca, and you can tell the advisor there which program you're looking into. They can share some recordings with you. They can even connect you with a student or an alumni. So there's many options for you to just like make sure that this is the right path for you. So we're here to help. And I'm so lucky today because I get to ask questions to our panelists. So, and feel free if you have more questions, please pop them in the chat. And I think Danielle and our team will be able to make them appear in that little box here and we can answer them. But let's start maybe, and I'll ask Geni and Clarissa with the first question. Tell us about yourself and your career. I don't know if you want to jump in first.
I'll let Claire take that one first.
Sure, I can go first. So I'm a registered professional planner by trade, and at this point now I'm looking at about 6 or so years of interdisciplinary experience, both in the public sector and as a consulting climate change planner. So I actually started my career in anthropology, and so my approach is sensitive to the lived experiences of the various participants that I engage with, really weaving in that individual and collective action approach. and seeking out opportunities to understand the needs and the motivations and the values of stakeholders and participants for really maximum impact. After my training in anthropology, I got a postgraduate education in urban and regional planning, and then joined the Master of Arts in Environment and Management at Royal Roads. So ultimately, my experience is really focused on sustainability and climate leadership. I have a lot of experience developing and implementing environment and climate change plans, programs, policies, and so on at a variety of scales. So I've been in coordinator positions in local government, as well as working in community level climate adaptation planning and capacity building in a consulting role. Earlier this year, I joined the Climate Change Division at the Government of Nova Scotia, Department of Environment and Climate Change, as a funding navigator. And so in this newly created role, I'll be helping external stakeholders in understanding what funding programs are available to them, helping them to build capacity for different organizations and individuals to apply for funding programs, and really deeply mobilize to achieve their climate-related priorities by connecting them and developing resources that can help connect them to climate-related funding opportunities.
Thanks, Claire. My path towards an environmental job is quite long and meandering. I started out as a undergraduate student in economics, went on and did a master's in economics and a PhD in economics, and then I took a teaching job. So I was in the university area for about 14 years, teaching down in the United States, a variety of different types of economics courses, including environmental economics. That was one of the fields that I had specialized in. When I came back to Canada, I found myself looking for a non-academic career, and I fell into some labor market research related to the oil and gas sector, looking at workforce needs. At the time that I joined that organization, there was a very high demand for workers in the oil and gas sector. It was really a struggle to find the people that were capable to meet those jobs. Since then, of course, things have changed quite a bit. After a year working there, I moved on to work as an economic consultant for a firm that does assessments of people's economic value from a legal perspective. So basically, I was quantifying the losses that people may have suffered as a result of injury or death, and for legal negotiations. So it was really related to salary and occupation type research, but it was a very different type of research. And then about 4 years ago, I was called back to the labor market research space, and this time for Eco Canada. And so over the past 4 years, I've been really immersing myself in the different types of occupations and roles that people can have as environmental workers. And the one thing that I found is that really any job these days is going to have a green aspect to it, one way or the other. So we have core environmental workers who are trained like Claire in environmental management or environmental practice, and then apply those skills. But we also have workers who are engaged in trades activities, HVAC professionals, water and wastewater treatment operators, carpenters who are building solar panel farms, those sorts of things. So that's the one thing I found, is that these jobs are ubiquitous, and if you want to make a contribution as an environmental worker, there is an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just to build on that, Geni, have you seen quite of a trend or like kind of difference for the 4 years you have been at Eco Canada with kind of those climate jobs? Do you see that there's like more and more?
We have, yes. I think there has been a transition over the past 4 to 5 years where we started most of our focus on environmental protection in water quality, air quality, waste management, more traditional site remediation types of activities. But since I've joined, there really has been a rapid growth in the need for people who have a good understanding of the impacts of climate change and the potential for mitigating or adapting to the climate changes that we're going to be seeing going forward.
Yeah, very true. Huh? And Claire, if you don't mind, I heard you say that it's a newly created role, so that wasn't something that existed without your organization. The role you're having now, I think, in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, no, so this role is a new role. So I have obviously the subject matter is very, very interesting and very important. There's a lot of people out in the community who really need some help in figuring out how they can get their project from planning to implementation, but it's equally exciting, and maybe this is just speaking to Jenny's comment about the transition, that this is a brand new role. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is really about drawing that box and figuring out what can we do that will have the most impact to support our community in the climate space, which is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And the reason I'm asking, because as Danielle mentioned, what I'm doing at RRU is the work integrated learning, and same thing. So we got funding from the federal government to link students and climate and green skills. And it's all kind of a new role we have to build and new skills. So it's very exciting for people, I find, in this space, because there's so many opportunities. I see my LinkedIn full of cool jobs every day, which wasn't the case 2-3 years ago, I find. Yeah, so that might lead to the next question: why a career in the environmental workforce?
Well,
sure,
let me
maybe.
start. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so as I mentioned, before transitioning to environment, I was in anthropology, and so most of my coursework was in physical anthropology and archaeology. And at the time, that was something I really wanted. I really wanted to be a practicing archaeologist, and I was really considering kind of moving that path forward academically. My first job ended up being in consulting archaeology on a field crew doing kind of stage 3 archaeological assessments for renewable energy. And so I got to site, and there I am digging my holes, and I realized that what I was actually excited about was listening to the conversations about public interest and environmental impact that really formed the center of the wind energy conversations at the time, maybe like circa like mid 2010s-ish. Ultimately, I decided that that's really kind of where I wanted to be. That's where I was really excited. I also joke around that I didn't want to just dig holes all day, which is partly true, I guess, since I now work mostly in policy. But anyways, so I ended up going back to school for that postbac that I talked about to become a registered professional planner with the intent of focusing specifically in environmental planning. And so ever since then, I really very intentionally become progressively more dialed in over time into this climate planning space through various educational and professional moves. And I'm really glad that I had the courage to make that switch, because it's something that I'm definitely very passionate about. And as a first generation university student, taking on that additional formal education felt like a pretty big commitment and also a pretty big risk. But I'm quite grateful to be where I am today, getting to work in climate adaptation planning and capacity building, where I feel like my career is really thriving.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think from my perspective, I guess more generally speaking about the opportunities in the environmental workforce, there's just so much innovation taking place, so much creativity in the environmental workspace. People are stretching themselves career-wise. There's a lot of opportunities for working with people in other disciplines and learning more about the disciplines that complement your own, learning to speak the language. For example, I'm thinking in the energy efficiency space, when you're designing an energy efficient building, these days it's really not just the architect and the engineer's job. You have to have the building superintendent, you have to have the construction managers, you have to have the tradespeople all at the table talking about the new technology that's going to be implemented, the processes that are going to be implemented, and the best way to construct this high performance building. That's true in all sorts of different spaces in the environmental sector. There's clean tech development that's taking place all across Canada. Lots of innovative new firms that are coming up with creative ways to help resolve some of our environmental issues. There are opportunities in more traditional industries for ensuring that the industries can continue to provide us with the goods and services that we need, but at the same time to do it in a sustainable and environmentally manageable fashion. So wherever your interest lies, there's an opportunity, and more the emphasis that businesses are putting on ESG, environmental, social, and governance aspects and reporting is going to increase that demand for those green skills, for those innovative new techniques more and more. So I just see it as a really exciting space to be able to work in.
I couldn't agree more. And Geni, I was just browsing around to find those data that you shared with us the last webinar. Like, how many jobs are expected in Canada again? Is it 200,000, 400,000?
No, yeah. Well, we had our last estimate was that there were about 700,000 environmental workers across Canada in 2020, and that was during the pandemic. So the estimate is, we're redoing the estimate this year, and we expect it to be quite a bit higher this year. We did expect that there was going to be growth in jobs of about 175,000 jobs for over a 5-year period. Many of those are replacing workers who are retiring. But again, a lot of them are also in new roles, like Claire's new role, opportunities that didn't exist before, but are now going to be essential for the promotion of sustainability throughout the economy.
Yeah, very true. And I think it comes back to many discussions I had the chance to have with prospect students when people come back to do their bachelor or master. They're like, wow, I really want to see the outcomes. I want to see what's next. So I think you both answer really well that there's space there. There's demand for people trained in different of the climate action sectors and environmental one. So the third question we have is, why is building capacity for climate-informed decision-making important to you?
Claire, do you want to take that one? I'll follow up.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. One of the things that I think a lot about that I think it's important to recognize in answering this question is that there is starting to be increased recognition recently, in particular, that climate change is not only a problem for engineers or climate scientists. Geni, getting back to that point you were making. So I'm thinking about a specific example. So I'm a member of the Canadian Institute of Planners as a registered professional planner, and the CIP's policy on climate change planning recognizes that all planners have an ethical obligation to consider climate change in their practices, and CIP strives to ensure that members have access to the resources, the data, the training, and other support that they need to do that. So this policy was adopted several years ago. but that idea is still continuing to gain momentum. So another example being in Canada's recently finalized National Adaptation Strategy. One of the targets is that by 2027, 70% of the members of relevant professional associations, so example, civil engineers, planners, architects, accountants, and so on, have the capacity to apply climate change adaptation tools and information and communicate that business case for adaptation measures to their target audiences. However, based on my experiences and what I've seen so far in the last 6 years developing a career in this space, that this is not necessarily something that's very intuitive for everyone, and not all of these practitioners necessarily understand exactly what it entails to consider climate change in their practice, why that should be relevant to them, and how it might look on the ground. And so I think we still have a lot of work to do across disciplines and sectors to really truly realize that vision and translate to a climate first approach to decision making, which has been demonstrated time again to have significant positive cascading impacts and co-benefits in our communities.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with Claire's assessment, and I would go a little bit further and say that the need for specialists in climate change policy, climate change adaptation is particularly acute right now, where we have so many professionals in other disciplines that don't have that understanding or expertise. Having the opportunity to work in a team where you have one individual who's specialized in the climate policy and climate adaptation, working side by side in collaboration with the more traditional practitioners, seems to be the first step to moving those disciplines towards a more climate focused attention span. And the great part about that is that there are so many disciplines where you can contribute, as you were saying, architects, engineers, biologists, scientists of various stripes, IT professionals, finance, accountants. These days, all of those people need this lens on the climate change phenomenon and to incorporate that. So there are ample opportunities for people to find roles, and it's essential. I mean, that transition is not going to take place, as far as I'm concerned, that transition is not going to take place without specialists who are helping the traditional practitioners move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Yeah, the conversation makes me think of even the city of Victoria now. They're talking about the textile industry and how we can do better. And I know there's someone in my cohort in climate action coming from that brand of fashion. And it's like, wow, there's so much we can do there. So I feel that there's sectors we never thought will be involved in the climate action world, but they are, because it's almost everywhere that we need to rethink the system we're using. So that's wonderful. Thank you for all those examples. Yeah. And Claire, if I go to you now let's talk about royal roles a little bit. And why do the Master in Environment and Management program, what value has that add for your career? And maybe you can let us know a little bit about the program too.
Sure, yeah. So while living and working in the Northern Yukon, I was there for about 3 years after I did my post-bac in urban and regional planning. And I was really keen to further my education and enroll in a master's program, but there were very limited options available to me, both living in a remote community and as a full-time working professional. And so my ideal scenario was to stay living in community and to keep my employment. And because of those two criteria, my search ultimately led me to Royal Roads, who, Nancy, as you have mentioned, is a Canadian leader in online education for full-time students who are also working professionals. And so the blended version of the program was a perfect fit for me because it meant that I could travel to campus once a year through an agreement with my employer. And so every October, I made the trip down to Victoria to participate in the residency for 3 weeks. Well, I was supposed to do it 3 times. I did it twice. Thanks COVID. We were all really sad that that third one was online, but I guess that just is another example of how we need to be open to adapting. But anyways, while I made that choice for very practical reasons and wanting to stay in community, at the time I definitely underestimated the ways in which that program would ultimately end up changing the trajectory of my career. So I would say, so my entry into the program, my acceptance into the program predates, if I'm not mistaken, Royal Roads' Master in Climate Action Leadership, which is a relatively new program, which I might have considered had it been available. However, I would say that the Environment and Management program does boast a very specific focus on subject matter that is highly relevant in the climate space. I'm thinking about systems thinking and reconciliation, ecological economics, sustainable development, social innovation, change management. We talked about all of those things and more, really with the specific focus of understanding how to integrate environmental leadership into your practice regardless of your discipline. And so I was in a cohort with planners and educators and physical scientists and agrologists, economists. Like, there was even a person who was a former oil and gas rig worker who just woke up one morning and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to contribute positively to the environment. Like, literally the whole spectrum. And so those relationships have been really important since then. The cohort model, the blended model, really forces you to trust your cohort and to really jump in with both feet and rely on each other, which is a really powerful thing. But the program also required me to build on and lean into my foundational skills that I had already developed or started developing in things like qualitative research and analysis and report writing, effective communication, strategization, critical thinking, those types of things. Very underrated and difficult to articulate soft skills. But these are all transferable skills that I use daily in my career, and the program really helped me to leverage those and to really build momentum in my career.
And I love what you just said about those skills that you need to translate. And I can think of the students maybe in the room right now being like, yeah, what I'm learning, how can I showcase that after my program, right, to transfer to another job? So hopefully we'll have those questions maybe in discussion after the webinar here. Could you let us know, I apologize if you did, but you did your bachelor in anthropology, and how long after did you move to your master?
Yeah, so I graduated from my bachelor's in 2014, and then so I had basically, sorry, now you're making me remember the dates. I did my post-baccalaureate in 2015 to 2017. And then started my master's in 2018. So I didn't have a lot of time in between, but the time that I did have, I was very strategic about pursuing career opportunities that would help me kind of continue to narrow my focus into that specific area of practice that I was interested in.
Yeah, 100%. And the reason I'm asking is that we have, as you mentioned, someone in your cohort being like, oh, I wake up one morning and I want to change my job. And so that's what we do at Railroads too. We have people coming from kind of the traditional path of, we do our bachelor, we move to a master, but many people have been away from school for many years. So I think for me, I find that this is kind of the richness of the program, is that I have people like myself that have almost 15 years between my other program at university and now, and some people with 20 years of a career in the field, and some people straight from almost their bachelor.
For sure. We had a whole spectrum as well. We had people that maybe had 1 or 2 years of experience. We had people that had maybe 10 years of experience. We had somebody who affectionately referred to himself as the grandfather of our cohort. Really a whole spectrum of ages and experience levels.
That's fantastic. Yeah, the grandfather of the program, that's funny. Someone in my program did a master in his 30, in his 40, and in his 50. So I'm like, wow, this is being courageous. And here, yeah, we talked about, we said in the introduction that you won an award at Eco Canada. I was there last January to see that. What difference has being an Eco Canada EP made in your career?
Yeah, for sure. So while I was working at the city of Port Coquitlam as an environmental coordinator, I started really intentionally seeking out opportunities to set myself apart from other registered professional planners and really signal that I had committed my career to environment and sustainability and climate change. And that was really important to me, that making that distinction, because planners do a lot of really important work across a huge range of subdisciplines like housing and transportation and economic development and heritage, and the list goes on. But I wanted to be really clear and really specific that I had really invested myself in this very specific subdiscipline. And so that for that reason, the mission and vision of Eco Canada really resonated with me, and it felt like something tangible to be a part of, and seemed like exactly the type of signal to my network that I was really looking for, to say, hey, this is what I'm here for, and this is a part of my ethic. And so when I initially set out to apply as an EPT, environmental professional in training, I was a little bit nervous that I wouldn't meet the requirements, because I have this really weird, windy, fairly non-traditional route into landing in this field. But luckily through the process, I did discover that Eco Canada and the EP process really focuses more on your demonstrated skills and knowledge, which I find to be really powerful. And I feel lucky all the time to be among this group of really highly qualified professionals working in a whole range of different environmental disciplines. And I would say that ultimately it had an immediate positive impact on my career, having that kind of name recognition of Eco Canada, but also the incredible network of people that I get to interact with on an almost daily basis, who are doing really cool, really important, really cutting edge things that are now kind of peers of mine as an environmental professional.
Great, yeah. Do you have an example of like kind of that networking? I know we have events we can attend. Is there other like training or courses? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Geni, feel free to jump in if you want to add anything, but there's events, there's the meetups, there's webinars and courses. There is opportunities to volunteer with Eco Canada if you have kind of specific interest in certain programs. They're always looking for volunteers. You can offer to either, if you feel in need of mentorship, there's a mentorship program where you can be matched with someone with similar career trajectory who can offer you some guidance. And on the flip side of that, if you feel like you have something to offer, you can become a mentor and give back to younger generations of aspiring environmental professionals. Yeah, those are some of the things that I can think of off the top of my head, but I don't know, Geni, if you have anything you want to add to that about kind of what you can do to get involved in Eco Canada.
Sorry. There are lots of opportunities to get involved. As the research director, we're always looking for subject matter experts to help us to build our in-house knowledge of what's going on in the environmental workspace. Most of my team in the research department, again, comes from a variety of different backgrounds. And so the environmental space is not necessarily our area of training. So we rely heavily on subject matter experts to help us validate the information that we are researching, to help us generate the research information, to help us with surveys, outreach to their communities. So wherever there's an interest in participating in the research department or the research that we do, we're always happy to have members participate there as well.
That's lovely. I find that environment, I don't want to say department, but area, there's so much collaboration compared to other fields. There's a lot of mentorship and working together, and I think we learn tons that way. So thank you for that. And I know I got an email during the presentation asking about your program, Clarissa, and if when is the next intake? So that's lovely. Thank you, and I will check with Danielle too in the chat if we have more questions. But yeah, the program that Claire took is the blended version of the MEM that we call the MEM program, and there's an intake in September actually. So if you already have quite a bit of your paperwork together and you want to try, the deadline is in August. So thank you for that person. I'll make sure to respond by email as well with more details. And that kind of linked to the last question of what advice will you give students thinking of an environmental career?
I can jump in and go first. So my advice that I'm going to give is probably very practical, and it's the advice that I wish that I had someone had given it to me, and I feel like my life would have been a lot easier if I didn't have to figure this stuff out for myself as a first-gen student. But I would say, like, right off the bat, think really early and really deeply about what types of careers actually interest you. I think a lot of people enter university thinking about the subject matter and not necessarily about the careers it might afford them, as well as what types of skills or credentials you might need to build to ultimately get there. And that's a big question, and I don't deny that, but it's certainly a very important one. And there are so many emerging options to get involved and to build your credentials and your skill set when it comes to sustainability and climate change. So, I mean, Geni mentioned ESG, but there's also credentialing and education opportunities in climate risk and adaptation, mitigation, decarbonization, building sustainability, energy modeling. I mean, there are so many, and we need more people who are skilled in these areas. And so something that really helped me was honestly to just sit there on job boards, even if I wasn't searching for jobs necessarily, and look at job postings for positions that I thought were interesting, that I might like to hold in the future, and kind of started making a list of the skills and the credentials that they were asking for, so I could figure out kind of, okay, which one of these apply to me, which ones of these am I interested in and might want to pursue to strengthen my application for a similar job in the future. And so many professional organizations also have student chapters. And there are also many of these credentials and training courses and certificates and whatnot. You can take these while you're still a student to increase your employability as a new graduate, which I think can be impactful if you don't necessarily have a lot of experience beyond an internship or whatnot. But so really working through this process was something that really helped me to dial in and really focus my time and effort to maximize my learning and my impact in the as I was trying to really build my career in those early years. And it was really critical for me to be able to effectively transition the knowledge that I had gained as a student into a set of tactical and practical actual hard skills that employers were looking for. So that's those are my learnings from my first few years in the industry.
I think that you've really captured a lot of what I would have said as well. That what it comes down to is learning about what those opportunities are. Organizations like Eco-Canada and other organizations out there are doing a lot of work to try to map out possible transitions between occupations, to provide skill sets and competency requirements for different types of jobs, to provide labor market information. Where are the high demand jobs? What sort of roles are they doing? We look at specific sectors of the environmental workforce. We've looked at the clean tech sector, we've looked at bioenergy, we've looked at nature conservation, we've looked at energy efficiency. Just in the last few years, we're looking right now at the EV battery supply chain and how that is requiring new opportunities or new jobs as well. But then I think the last thing is, you don't necessarily have to restrict yourself to an old-fashioned career or a traditional career. Think outside of the box. There are opportunities that are going to be available and that are coming about because of the changes that we're seeing in the way business is being done, the way that policy is being developed and implemented. And I think, you know, someone said that a lot of the jobs that people are going to have in 10 years don't exist right now. So being open to trying something different and trying something outside of your comfort zone, and being the first person in that role and saying, this, I'm going to put my stamp on this, and I'm going to create this new occupation or this new career, and be a leader in that area. So, you know, there's so much, I think, opportunity to create a career that suits you in a way that hasn't been possible in the past.
Yeah, thank you both. Very inspiring. Yeah, I love that, the thinking outside the box. You both make me think of, when talking about job posting, if I'm correct, Geni, there's job posting on the Eco-Canada website, which is very useful. And I know for railroad students, we have careerroads.ca that was kind of up to date in the past years, but we're really adding tons of jobs those days. And I feel that it's across Canada, and we're really trying to focus again on those green skills. So there's a lot of good opportunities if people want to have a look at careerroads.ca. And something I get asked a lot too is about those short programs. So I know it's quite trendy now about micro-credentials, and I forgot to mention them, but I know many institutions across Canada are doing them. At Railroads, we created a few in change management, project management, and one in climate action as well. So if some people in the audience are like, I want to do something different, but I'm not ready to sign up for a few years, I think micro-credential will be the way, and we can build from one to another one and create a certificate. So that might be something, as you mentioned, that we didn't see 5-10 years back, but now that would become a trend. So yeah, thank you so much both. And I wonder if we can go to the next slide. I think we have some questions here in the chat. Oh, before I move on, yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, because I'm getting quite a bit of emails from you folks in the room. I love it. But the services that are available to you, as Clarissa have mentioned and can talk about, I'm sure, when we go back to school, of course, there's like a lot to think about, and finance is part of it. So please feel free to always connect with the financial and aids and awards team at Railroads. They really know what's available. I know that Eco-Canada has some resources on grants too that are available for students, or if you want to go back to school or just transition. So please connect with this team here. And as I mentioned before, the learn.more at railroads.ca is really your go-to if you're a prospect thinking of applying at Railroads. They will walk you through all the little steps you need to do to enroll. And we have tons of programs starting in September. But what I like about Railroads is that because we do things differently, we have intake a little bit all over the year. So it's not like traditional university that everything starts in September. We have program in like November, January, or April. So that gives you maybe a bit more time if you're thinking of going back to school. Thank you for that slide, Danielle.
Fantastic presentation, ladies. Thank you so much. It was very informative. And we do have a few questions for you. I just wanted to remind everyone that this link that you see on the screen will take you to a networking room where you can join the ladies after this session. So we do have a few questions here. The first one is for Clarissa. It says, Clarissa, I'm a student in the MA in Environment and Management at RRU. I am very excited about systems thinking, complexity management, and other great tools and frameworks. But from your experience, do you apply these in real life, and how?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that the short answer is yes, absolutely 1000%. The longer answer is that it takes a bit of time and practice to realize that everything we do it can be impacted and influenced by that systems thinking lens. And so sometimes I think it's really important that MEM touches on that and has that education opportunity to expose people to critical systems thinking, because it's for a lot of people, it's the first time they have that opportunity to really practice teasing out how systems influence everything we do, and teach people to apply that to whatever context they happen to be working in. So I mean my work in kind of climate planning and capacity building, I think a lot about how, like one example is that, so there's this system that I even mentioned earlier in my talk about the importance of climate being integrated into each of these other disciplines. And if you can think of that as like a series of interconnected systems, the relationship between planners, between engineers, between finance and investment people, like there are all these different pieces, and each of them have a role to play in that climate system, and we all need to be aware of that and be working together if we are going to be able to implement these kind of climate adaptation and mitigation strategies over the long term. Hope that's helpful.
Fantastic. I think that that's a wonderful answer. This next question is for Geni. Geni, who can we reach out to at ECO to figure out the best path for starting an environmental career as a postgraduate?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I think one of the first things that you may want to check out is our wealth of wage subsidy programs, which are available for different people with different backgrounds. The wage subsidy program is designed to help people get that first job after graduation, or to transition into the environmental workforce from another role with a little bit less of a risk on the employer's perspective. So the employer can take you on and train you and take advantage of your new skill set with a little bit less risk. And most of the time we find that these jobs turn into full-time jobs afterwards. So talking to our wage subsidy team is a great way to start. In terms of what opportunities there are available, we have a multitude of research products available on our website under the research tab. You can search our research catalog. We've got regional specific outlooks for environmental work. We've got frameworks for development of the workforce. We've got information about diversity, equity, and inclusion, opportunities for you to learn more about specific careers. We've got what we call career profiles available on our website as well, which I think we've got about 123 or 130 different careers profiled on our website. So that's a good start. But I mean, I guess the short answer is reach out to me tell me what you're interested in finding out, and I'll see if I can connect you to the right person at ECO. So if you want to reach out to me, I'm at G Peters, GPETERS at eco.ca.
And I'll just throw that into the chat so everyone has access to that. Okay, our next question is for Nancy. Nancy Sampson from Ghana with a BSc in Agriculture Technology is interested in the environmental science program, but wants to know if there's an application procedure, application fees, or is there an evaluation? And he also would like to know, is there fully funded scholarships for this program for international students? If you want me to break up that question, Nancy, let me know.
Thank you. Yeah, that's many questions in one. But yeah, I think the first step I will encourage is really to reach out to learn.more at railroads.ca, because the advisor there will really know, kind of look at your past credential, your transcript, everything, and see if it's a good fit. Because every program has kind of the requirements, work experience and credential, but some program are more open than others. And of course, we love international students. I think it's a strength at Railroad to be in classroom with people from across the world. So I really encourage you to connect with learn.more, or just send me an email as well. I think many people got my email, and or maybe Danielle, you can pop it in the chat, nancy.prevostmaurice@railroads.ca, and I can help you navigate from the enrollment services to the admission process. But on the website, again, every program we have, I really like it. We have like a video of each program telling you about what's the program about. It's kind of a conversation with the program head. Then we have the dates, we have the money you need to invest, and the program schedule. And I'm not quite sure about the full scholarship. It really depends. But I know we have a few, for example, $1,000 entry grant that many people in my cohort got. So there's a few grants like this you can apply, and maybe there's, depending of your situation, there's more you can get. So I hope that answers it.
Great. We have a question for Geni. Does EcoCanada provide internships to help RRU students build up their skills? Actually, that could be for both.
Okay, well, I guess there are two parts to that. Depending on what our needs are within EcoCanada, we're always looking for new blood, and there are often opportunities for a career within EcoCanada, depending on what your background is. But I would say probably the best opportunity you would have is to use our job board, put your resume up there on the job board, and then connect with the certification team and see if you could apply for the EPT, the certification that Claire has. That will help you connect to other people in the field that you're interested in, and give you a little bit more of a leg up in terms of promoting yourself within that network. And then lastly, of course, consider applying for those wage subsidies. We don't necessarily match hosts or employers to employees, but having that acceptance as part of your resume, saying I come with a certain amount of money attached to me, can help make it more attractive for an employer to consider you.
Fantastic. Okay, sorry about my screen there. This is our next question. As an international student, I heard that we need to put the foot in the door. If you were in my position, which door would be the best one to start with?
I love that.
Well, I can talk about generally my experience. For example, although I'm a Canadian by birth, I did work extensively in the US, and I had my education, my PhD in the US as well. When I came back to Canada, I was essentially an international person, because all of my experience was outside of Canada. And so for me, the first step that I took was to explore any opportunities I had to network. And that was networking with people who were in completely different disciplines than I was even looking for a job in, just to make connections. Because you talk to, as an economist, I talk to an engineer, they may not have, you know, they're not going to hire an economist directly, but they may know somebody who's doing finance. And that person who's doing finance may know somebody who's doing accounting. And that accounting person may know somebody who's involved in economic policy. You know, talking to people and making those connections. My understanding is that a great many of the jobs, the hiring that takes place, a great deal of the hiring that takes place in Canada is done by word of mouth and through connections. So that's where the getting your foot in the door really, that's where that phrase comes from. So, you know, join organizations in your community to meet people. Join Toastmasters. You can find people of a wide variety of different backgrounds there. Join the EP community here at Eco Canada. Just take advantage of any opportunity you have to network and to get your name out there and to explore those opportunities.
Fantastic. And that brings us to the end of our webinar for today. As we said earlier, please join the ladies in the Zoom meeting room after this for some additional networking. Nancy has some additional questions that I've sent her from our chat box here, so I'm sure she'll be answering those when we move over to the other sessions. So thank you so much, ladies. Fantastic session. And we'll see you all over in the Zoom room. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.